All right, this is the lunch pail half hour. Woo woo. We do the dirty work. We're down in the ditch with the shovel. We're the guy with the shovel down in the ditch. We do the dirty work. Woo woo. Anyway, and we do extreme endurance or endurance to extreme endurance. Anyway, today we're going to talk about kind of my history of swimming and how I got to where I'm going for my sixth attempt at the English Channel. I'm thinking this might help you guys if you got something you've been failing at or haven't had the courage to take on. And maybe my journey with the English Channel might help you with, taking on something that you've been afraid to take on because you're afraid of failing, or maybe it's something you put on the shelf, a dream that you put on the shelf and you need to dust it off and take it back out and go for it. Woo woo. Anyway, so my history when it comes to swimming is I didn't really learn to swim until I was 35 years old. I was 35. I mean, as a kid, what we did was we did park and rec for a few years where you go out there for like 2 weeks, during the summer, and my mom was there, and you learn the basics in swimming. And so kind of as I got to be an adult, how good of a swimmer I was, if I went out somewheres where it was over my head to swim, I would go out, like if I was in Lake Tahoe, I would swim out till I was over my head, tread for like 3 seconds, think I was a big shot, and then swim right back into where I could stand up. So not an advanced swimmer at all, zero, you know. And what happened was at 35, I had seen the Ironman as a kid, and I went over to Hawaii to bike around the Big Island. I was on a bike tour to go around the Big Island, and that was when, anyway, and the Hawaii Ironman was going on, so it totally freaking fired me up, man. Before I went on this bike, I had time to watch the Ironman for a day, and then go back to and then do the bike tour. I just got there a day early. It was the universe telling me that you need to get into triathlons, and I didn't even know how to swim hardly. I just do that swimming I'm telling you. To swim out till I'm over my head and then tread and come back. So anyway, so what I learned to do, so I called up a coach, and he said, what are your credentials about swimming I think what I did was I called up a coach about learning to swim, and basically I started masters and I learned to swim then, and then I came through to where I did the Ultraman. So which is a big triathlon around the Big Island. I did this triathlon around the Big Island. It was amazing athletes in there. I think there was like there was Olympic swimmer and stuff. And there's only like 35 of us, but you kind of work your way around Hawaii, the Big Island of Hawaii. So the first day it's like a 10K swim with a wetsuit in a calm bay, and then and then like a 90-mile ride. And then the second day is like a 170-mile bike ride. And then the third day is like a 52-mile run. Well, I finished that, and they had a award ceremony. And at the award ceremony, one of the women who beat me, and I was like 25th. There was only like 30 of us doing it. I was like 25th out of the water. 25th I finished in the swim. And she was probably 24th or something. And she beat me by 5 minutes in the swim. And then at the award ceremony, they said that she had swam the English Channel. And I was like, wow, she only beat me by 5 minutes. If she could swim the English Channel, I could swim the English Channel. And so I called up and I signed up. You have to do a 6-hour qualifying swim before, and in the bay. And I'd only swam in that bay. It was like my first big swim in open water, and in Hawaii, and it was with a wetsuit on. And I called up the Dolphin Club. I'm now a member of the South End Club, but originally I called up the Dolphin Club and I said, hey, I want to swim the English. I got the lady who answered the phone. I said, I want to swim the English Channel, and I need to learn to swim in the bay. I got to work my way up to a 6-hour qualifying swim in San Francisco Bay. And she said, well, have you ever swam in the bay? I said, no. Have you ever swam in cold water? I said, no, not that cold. And she said, well, how do you know you'll like it? I go, I don't know. What if you jump in and you said this isn't for me? I go, well, it's kind of late for that because I already booked a boat pilot and I gave him my deposit. So I'm going to do it. So I went down there. I remember the first day I went down to the Dolphin Club and walked out on the beach. Went down to the aquatic park, and the fog was down low, and I was watching as swimmers came out of the fog, out of that cold, crazy, dark water, and I thought to myself, I've said this over and over again, what have I gotten myself into? And yeah, and I jumped into that water, and I started swimming, and I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, I was strong enough that I was able to do my 6-hour qualifying swim for the English Channel. I did it, and it was, just nothing was going to stop me. I was going to stay in that water, whatever it took to get that 6 hours in, So then I go over, I want to share this part with you. So then I go over to England. I got my first attempt at the English Channel, and I got a boat pilot. And, I hadn't really talked to him or anything. We exchanged some email, texts, and I was just referred to him by somebody. I didn't know anything about this guy. And anyway, I got over there and I met him. And he said, Bill, I was looking at your website. So you're an extreme endurance athlete. And, I'd been running in the desert and running in international falls, and I've been all this extreme running, and even biking across America, and he says, so you're this extreme athlete and you think you're going to swim the English Channel, right? The English Channel is 21 miles, no wetsuit, no brakes. He says, no way in hell are you ever going to be able to swim the channel? That's what he told me. He said, no way in hell are you ever going to be able to swim the channel. And I thought, wow, this is really unusual service for a guy I just handed a big like $3,000 check to, for my swim. And then like 2 days later, he calls me up, I'm in my hotel or whatever. And he says, he let me know that we're going to go tomorrow. That's how they do it. It's the night before when they go, and my turn was up. And he says, we're going to go tomorrow. It looks good out there, Meet me at the boat dock at like 3 a.m. in the morning. And so I go down there and I meet him at 3 a.m. in the morning, down at his boat dock. And it's like a half-hour boat ride to where we jump in the water. And then you like swim to shore, on England, and you're swimming to France, So I think it was like Shakespeare Beach it was called or something. And as we're taking this half-hour boat ride to where I start, there's white caps on both sides of the boat. It's like pitch black because it's 3 a.m. in the morning. Freaking big old angry ocean, white caps everywhere. I go, hey man, you said that it was going to be nice today. He goes, well, sorry, Bill, surprise storm blew in. And he started laughing. I was like, holy cows. And so we go down to where I got to jump in the boat. I jump in to swim to shore, and I remember I go to get out, I stand up, and a big wave hits me on my back, drives me right into the sand. I have to crawl out like a baby, and then I look out at this big angry ocean at 3 a.m. in the morning in the dark. And I thought to myself, again, what have I gotten myself into? And the other thing the boat pilot had told me, he says, no way in hell will you make it. My worst swimmer lasted 20 minutes and he begged me to pull him out of the water. He begged me to, and then again, he started laughing. And I jumped in that water. It was the roughest water by far. To this day, it's the roughest water I've ever swam in. And I was getting slammed from side to side. I couldn't even tell which way was up. And you know what I was thinking the whole time? Please, please, Bill, last 20 minutes. You don't want to be a laughing stock. So anyway, I didn't only make it 20 minutes, I made it 4 hours. And I got so seasick, I started throwing up so bad that I just literally I was, kicking like this. The only thing above the water was my head because I was so weak, I couldn't continue. But when I finally called it, I will say that the guy looked at me when I got on the boat and he says, you know what? I knew you wouldn't make it. But that was a hell of an effort, man, because I wasn't going to quit. I just kept puking. I got weaker and weaker until I just couldn't even keep my feet above the water, But anyway, and so then I went through about another 3 attempts, of different levels of success or not success. Never made it. And so then I came in for my 5th attempt. Now I'm a full-time swimmer. All I'm doing is swimming. I'm swimming, long swims, 8-hour swims in the bay, and really, really felt like I was ready for it, And I went over there and I had a pilot, I got a new guy. He's friendlier to me. He's not rooting for me not to make it. I got a guy who wants me to make it. And I swam that day. We had a night. It was really nice. And I remember I'm swimming and, I'm going and we get out there about, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours. And they put up a sign and it says, 4 miles to go. 4 miles to go when it was nice conditions. And I said, because it's 21 miles, I'd been swimming for 17 miles. I've been swimming, 8 or 9 hours at that point. And I said, oh, I got this. I got this. Because I felt good. And then all of a sudden, man, I started swimming again. After, we have breaks every 30 minutes. They feed you you throw your food on a rope over, it's like bottled liquid food or gels or something, it's all kind of liquidy stuff for me. And then, so, and they said the 4 miles and I thought to myself, I got this for sure. And then I start swimming and then all of a sudden this big dark cloud comes right over our head. And I'm like, and it was this storm blew in. It's like the English Channel's famous for fast moving storms that blow in there. And they blow in and they basically sunk like the Roman Empire one time. And so I'm swimming into this storm and, this wind is just blowing and we're just getting hammered with these big waves. And I'm like, I gotta keep going. I go, I'm not quitting. And then all of a sudden, it was like, I swam for an hour and I kept my head down because I was just digging. And then they put up a sign. It said, 7 miles to go. How would you like that? You've freaking been swimming for like 10 hours or 9 or 10 hours and you swim for an hour. And then they tell you that instead of 4 miles, you have 7 miles to go. And what I found out later is that the tide was going this way, the current was going this way, and the wind was pushing me this way. These big waves and wind were coming right at my face. So I really wasn't moving towards France. But what was happening was I was getting pushed sideways. And there's a Calais peninsula, this point that you're supposed to hit. And what happened was I got pushed past that point, by the wind hitting me this way with the waves, and then the current pushing me this way. And so it was a much further swim inland when you get past that Calais. So they'd put the 7-mile sign up. But I was like, I'm swimming the whole time, and I'm thinking to myself, man, I got to tell my crew, like, never put a sign up that's bigger than the last one. I don't care if it's true or not. I can't look at a 4-mile to go and then go to a 7-mile to go. Anyway, so then, they turned around and I said, okay, I'm not gonna stop till I freaking make it. I'm just putting my head down and going. And I swam for probably another 20 minutes. And then I looked up and I couldn't find the boat, man. I lost the boat. I would put my head down and I couldn't find the boat. And I'm looking around. I'm looking around like it's the perfect storm, you know what I mean? Like, where'd the boat go? And I'm in these white caps. And that is how you die in the English Channel. You lose your boat, And then anyway, what happened was, and then I saw the boat. It was about, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile towards England. And so I swam to it. When I got to it, the guy says, hey, Bill, I got to cancel. I got to stop the swim. I only lost the boat for probably 45 seconds. Enough, though, to give you a good fear and a good fear jolt. But he said, you're not going to make it. We're not going to, I don't have enough. You know what I mean? We're not going to make it. I can't stay with you when in these conditions. You know what I mean? He couldn't go as slow as I was going and stay with me in these conditions because he's getting blown all over the place. So he had to call. So I says, I'm going to call the swim. And I've been swimming for, I think, almost 11 hours. I was really exhausted too. So, and there was no way I could make it at that point. And then he got me in the boat. They got me in the boat, and then he hands me a bucket. Right? I go, well, I don't need a bucket. I have this patch because I do get seasick, and I'm wearing this patch. Which stops. He goes, no, you just hold on to that bucket, Bill. And then when we started heading back, all of a sudden I hear, I start like, because I was depleted and wiped out. And then on top of it, then it was that really rough conditions. And so, yeah, I started puking. And there was a guy who started the same time I did. He was much faster swimmer than me. And it came over the radio that he had just landed at shore. And I said, well, how did he make it? He said, well, he was so fast that he got protected by the cliffs, the cliffs of France, when that storm hit and the winds picked up. And I laughed. I said, so because he's fast, he makes it to France. He finishes the English Channel. And because I'm slow, I get the consolation prize, a bucket, and nice 2 hours of throwing up all the way back to England, So anyway, after that, I came back the next year. I was in really great shape, never got a chance to swim because it was awful conditions. And I was so depressed about not getting that chance to swim where I was in the best shape I'd ever been in. And then on top of that, I had to, I took 8 years off. I was just sick of swimming. I was so burned out on swimming, especially in cold water and for hours and hours and hours. And I took 8 years off. And then I just 2 years ago, year and 3/4 ago, I decided that I was driving by San Francisco Bay and I said, the water is starting to look sexy again. I said, I think I'm going to put that channel back on my list. And so I booked a year and a half out. I booked a pilot for the English Channel, my same pilot who did me 8 years ago. And then you got to do that 6-hour qualifying swim. But in that year and a half, right before I went, I was not able to make that 6-hour qualifying swim. I made it 4 hours and 58 degrees. And then I came back 2 weeks later and was only able to make it 4 hours again. And then I came back 2 weeks later. I tried 3 times. And then this time I only made it 2.5 hours because my body was tired. So anyway, that brings us to date, which means I re-signed up for the English channel for 2027. That was the earliest I could get in. And I'm out, and I've been like, I took a couple months off of swimming after those failed attempts to qualify. I was really forcing my body, pushing my body, so I was kind of burned out on swimming. I took a couple months off, but I'm back in the pool. I've swam 4 times in the last week, so I think it's happening again. I'm getting my mojo, my water mojo back. Woo woo. Anyway, so I think what I'm showing here is that no matter how many times you get kicked in the teeth by an event, no matter how many times you fail, I mean, you just keep trying to figure out how you can do it and keep fighting for that thing. That's how the guys make the people who are the people we all look up to, the big champions in life. The biggest thing they have going for them is their perseverance. They just do not quit on a goal or whatever they're put on this earth to do. And when if you go through any of these big giant people, mega star athletes, they've had points in their life where, it's been rough on them, man, for sure, So, and that's part of it. You gotta figure out how to get back at it. Like for me, man, it took 8 years, but freaking I could jump back in that cold water again after 8 years. I was rusty at swimming though. Let's see. Who inspired you or influenced your swimming journey the most? Wow. Well, I think it was when I was a kid, I watched the Ironman, when I was in high school, I think. And that got me where I wanted to do an Ironman, which in order to do an Ironman, you had to swim, And I was a runner in high school and stuff. So I was just a runner. And then after high school, I started biking, so it was a natural, I actually raced criterium bikes. And so it was a natural for me to have to get that swimming. But I think actually it was inspired by the TV. Okay, any plans to do any winter sled pulling? I don't know. I mean, I'm running again. I don't know. I'm not plans to do Arrowhead though. I mean, if I did something, it would be just some training because I am running again. But yeah, Arrowhead's another beast. I have to really dedicate to that sucker. English Channel is minor league compared to Arrowhead. English Channel I haven't made 5 tries. Arrowhead, the next time I go out there will be my 13th attempt. That's 135 miles, pulling a 40-pound sled in northern Minnesota with your survival gear. So yeah, I don't have any plans right now, but I'm definitely running again, and I'm enjoying it because I was hurt for like a year and a half. I hurt my knee and stepping in a crevice on Denali. So yeah, and I'm dropping some weight. I'm actually going to see how fast I can do a mile, and I'm down. I'm trying to drop like 20 pounds, 22 pounds, but who's counting? I'm down 7. I'm good at losing weight. I'm better at gaining it. I'm terrible at staying the same. Woo woo. What makes the injury? I think the English Channel is just it has so much history, man. I remember when I went out there the first time, I stayed with a guy in his, it was like they had a room to rent, and I stayed with him out there. First time, my first attempt, and this guy was all in the history of the English Channel. It was just so fascinating. And then that Captain Webb, who was the first guy who swam it, it was like, nobody thought he would make it. It was like a 22-hour swim or something for him. I can't remember, but it was long. And he had, they had crazy clothing on back there that was like super heavy in the water. And just the tradition of it, it's really sexy. The English Channel is sexy. And then and that girl Michelle, who beat me in the swim, she had swam the English Channel, and I'd heard of it, but I go like, oh, that sounds cool. I gotta do it. I gotta at least try. and try and try and try and try and try and try. What advice would you give someone dreaming of taking on a massive endurance challenge like this? You just take it one step at a time. I think, I had already been swimming for 10 years doing triathlons, just doing master swimming in the pool. And so I had a pretty good base, which I don't think I really added, kind of put into the equation when I was making my comeback. Like I need, probably another year of swimming to get to English Channel shape because I had really swam a long time consistently, So, it was like 3 days a week, for masters and just continuously for a decade, man. So, I mean, I think it is if you got a big goal, I don't know. I just do it, man. Figure out if you got a big goal to do it, figure out what you got to do I like signing up. Like I did. When I saw the Ironman in Hawaii, I immediately went and hired a coach. Like when I was over there, after the race ended, I hired a coach to train me. And I signed up for the first Ironman I could sign up for, which was Ironman Canada back then. And anyway, I would sign up, try and put it out far enough, like a year, that you could train for it. But if it's like doing something really extreme that you don't have a good background in, you might need to put it a couple years out, so you could make sure you're in good shape. And then if there's shorter races, shorter events you could do those to build your confidence. You know what I mean? So that's what I try and do is you build the shorter ones to build your confidence, and you just keep building that confidence and gaining that mental toughness that you could make, let's say a Olympic distance triathlon. And then you make that, and then your next one you go for is half Ironman. And then mentally, you can make a half Ironman. So the next one you go for is an Ironman. You kind of step your way up there. It's really hard to go right from the couch to some huge event like swimming the English Channel right from the couch, unless you have a huge amount of swimming background. You know what I mean? To where once you get in for a little while, it's going to come out. I did not have that background. But, okay. I am not are you on the tutelage of any formal coaching right now? Lentil clouds. No, not right now. I'm just getting back in the water, baby. Just getting back in the water. That's all I'm doing. Getting comfortable in the water again, man. But I think I'm feeling like it's coming on quicker. I took 2 months off, but I'm feeling better. And, and I never quit. So definitely going back to the English Channel as long as I can make my 6-hour qualifying swim. Am I going to be getting a coach? I don't know. I probably am. I'll get some coaching or some advice for sure. Let's see. What role does swimming play in your mental toughness today? I'm telling you, I think swimming in San Francisco Bay, for when you start getting out there 4, 5, 6 hours or more, it's pretty mentally tough, man. Especially you're cold and and you only feed every half an hour. You're in your head freaking the whole time, man. You're in your head. You can't help but be in mentally toughness. You have nothing to distract you. There's not like a pacer who talks to you, although sometimes you have pacers in the water, but not very often. And you don't really talk that much. You only talk when there's a feed, So what role does swimming play in your mental toughness today? I think I was just answering that. Makes me really tough. San Francisco Bay makes me really tough. That bay is tough. It's cold, and it's cold during the winter, and it can get rough, man. If the wind starts blowing, that bay can get rough. What's the hardest part of training for long swims? The body or the mind? Good question. I think it's both. People always say, I've heard people say like, oh, endurance spurts are 90% mental, and 10% physical. I go, no, I disagree with that. Myself personally, I think it's 90% mental if you're 100% physically fit. You have to do the work. That's one thing I did wrong last year was I was trying to get my endurance swims in the bay, and I couldn't last. I couldn't get strong enough in the bay. It was just too cold. I could last like an hour. I lasted like an hour at 50 degrees, which is my record. But I wanted to be doing 2 and 3 hour swims and couldn't do it. So I think I'm going to do a lot more of the endurance swims in the pool this time so that I make sure I get them in. Because in the past, I've done up to 8 hours in the pool. You would be thinking that's a record, but I watched Naiad, the movie, and I think she was doing like 12 hours or something. But 8 was plenty long, man. That's a long time to stare at that black line. And that's another thing. The more you swim in the pool, that's a mental toughness of its own, is swimming back and forth in that pool and looking at that black line for, hours or half hours or whatever. That's a mental toughness you got to build up too. The bay is the cold and the rough. You got to build up mental toughness on that. But the pool, the I don't know what to call it, man. It's boredom, man. It's like, you're just sitting there staring at this black line swimming back and forth. When I was doing endurance swims in the pool, that's what you're doing, So 90% of the game is half mental. I like it, John. That's about what I believe. Woo, woo. Anyway, we're wrapping up, man. Hopefully you learned something about my history of swimming, and hopefully you'll keep attacking your dreams, man. If you got something, you got a big one up there on the shelf that you need to dust off and go after it again, do that. And if you got one that that you've got the crap kicked out of you once or twice or 3 or 12 times, keep going, baby. Keep going, because all the sweeter when you finally finish. Woo, woo. Lunch Pail Half Hour signing off. Woo, woo. Thank you, guys.